I started off by reading over what we did. It's 2010, July 2010.
It was, wasn't it?
It's a long time ago. So you had 3 years. I think almost the first thing I wondered was to say, you were talking about experience based around themes, and your use then it was shelters was your first. And how have you found that way of working? Have you been pleased with it?
Very much so. I mean, we've got children who are engaged in their learning, who are motivated by their learning. They absolutely love the fact that every single time we start a new learning experience, there's a hook, and that hook is designed to bring them into the learning, get them engaged in it, have them asking key questions about, well, what happens if this happens, or why did they invade at this time, and what would it be like to be something, either it's a Roman soldier or whether it's a paramedic or anything like that. It's trying to make sure that the learning is put into a context so they understand the reasons why we learn about something, and then they can start to recognise the difficulties that certain people will have being within their roles, or whether they understand the impact of what something, if something would happen, what impact would it be? So for instance, we've done things such as having farmers come in, talk about the milking process. We've then had a manufacturer come in and talk about turning the milk into ice cream. And then we've had a PR company come in and talk about how to represent that ice cream. And then the children go through that whole process of making the ice cream, doing market research, making sure that they understand where the milk has come from to where the final product is, and then how to sell that product and how to engage with different people. So they have to make up a video of the advert that they're going to do. They have to do a poster advert, and then they have to present to a panel about their ice cream and the facts and the figures and all of that as well.
And so you break down, so that the maths is done through that, the English is done through that?
Yes, maths is generally more taught discreetly, but that's because we don't want to make those links too tenuous. Sometimes you can make it far too tenuous and then it's out of context. So actually the maths runs as a separate, every morning there's a maths lesson and they just learn their maths, and there will be links that are joined to it, but it's trying to make sure that the maths development is in a set progress, whereas the literacy development is far more versatile and done through the learning experiences.
I see, right.
Yeah.
That's great. And you're doing using the same process right through from the first years to...
Absolutely, from foundation stage all the way up to year 6. They all have that same focus, they all have that same drive, and they all have a sense of ownership over it as well, because there's elements within the learning experiences that the children have opportunities to put in their interests or to develop their interests or their skills, to show that actually I may not be the greatest artist, but I'm a really good computer person, so I can take the skills of the IT, support my team members, they can do the artwork, I can take a photograph of it and then upload it and put it into a text or a document.
Great,
form.
Great.
But it's just our curriculum's got the 4 main values of teamwork, independence, creativity and challenge. So we say it makes us tick, and it means that the children leave us with the skills of being good communicators, being able to communicate within a team, not only getting their ideas across, but to listen to other people's ideas and take their ideas on. Realise that there are times where ideas are taken on and the leadership that gives, but also the times that ideas aren't taken on and the disappointment that can bring, but recognition that other people's ideas are just as good, if not better, at times. And we need to get that whole balance, because that's a life skill and a life learning experience.
Yes.
Then we go into the independence, and it's about them operating independently within a team. So they've got the skills and the knowledge and the ability to question what's being asked of them, and independently I'll decide whether that's a good thing to do or a negative thing to do. And then it also allows them to be independent within their learning, So they decide that they are going to focus on as something that they need to develop. It will be different to the person that they're sitting next to, but that's because each person is an individual and works through their own difficulties and challenges. But it also allows them to act independently in school, to function as a human being and make the choices that they need to make and take the responsibilities for those decisions. And then the creativity is not only about the art and the craft and the music and the dance. That's embedded in our curriculum. The creativity is about creative thinking and trying to look at things from a new perspective and a new direction. So we always say to our staff that do your first initial brainstorm about what you want to get from it and then scrap it, because that's usually just the norm, and we don't want to be the norm, we want to be something creative. So we say, right, if that's what we're going to look at, let's spin it on its head and look at it from a different perspective. So if we're doing fairy tales, why do we always take it from certain characters' point of view? Let's take it from a different person's character point of view, or somebody who's not mentioned in the story and has watched it from behind a tree or something like that. So did they see that the wolf was blowing down the house in rage, or actually was the house on fire and he was blowing the house down because he was trying to save the pigs? It's just putting things on from a different angle and looking at it from a different point of view. So we try to make the children understand that there is a basic level of understanding needed, and then when they're ready for it, up-leveling it to make it into something quite unique.
Mm-hmm.
And then the challenge is about that creative thinking and making sure that we are meeting as a school the academic standards, but each child is meeting their own individual targets and their own individual standards that are required of them, but also challenging them to take risks in their learning and go for something that's completely out of their comfort zone. Because otherwise, if you stick to your comfort zone, you're only going to be good at one or two things. Whereas if you spread yourself a little bit wider and open yourself up for that challenge, then they become better learners and better human beings by the end of it.
Two questions that immediately come to my mind is, do you find that your team of teachers have been able to, this is quite a radical form of teaching, isn't it? Have they taken it on board well, have you found?
Yes, very much so. I mean, I think for those who are here from the beginning, they found it like a revolution, if you like. They've been teaching the QCA documents for years. So to
QCA?
which it's the old curriculum's suggested topics of learning. So the QCA is the body that produced those documents. And they were great at the time. It meant that teachers didn't have to go and think for themselves. They could just go and take something off the shelf and utilise the objectives and programmes of study that were there. But it didn't allow you to be individual. So each school would be doing the same learning experiences, topics, but it didn't allow you to be something other than the norm. So they've been teaching it for a long time. So to actually have something new come in, one is scary because all that they knew had gone, their foundation had gone. But for those who are fed up with teaching the same thing, was like, yeah, at last we can do something that interests us and something that we can get our heads around. And it was hard. It was a lot of work to set up your own curriculum, but it does mean that it's a curriculum that's relevant to our children. It's something that supports the national curriculum, but it makes it relevant for our children because we're using things that are in our local context. And it just means that the approach that we've taken has allowed them to see the children in a different light.
Is each child, I mean, as a parent, one might be worried, is there enough individual assessment of where exactly my particular child is? Are they doing well, or are they being challenged, or can they sit back if it's all being done in teams? Yes, how well are they being sort of
It's getting the balance. I mean, not everything that we do is done in a team. It's about getting the balance, and every teacher observes or analyses the work that the children have done, When they do their marking, they use the bubble and block process. So the bubble tells the child what they've done well and how they've met the learning objective, whereas the block tells them their next steps for learning. So it's been great that you've been able to use your descriptive language to support the storytelling. However, next time you need to make sure that you're using paragraphs to separate the events out within the story, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's making sure that the children get good positive feedback, but also shown the way that they could progress their learning each time.
And the parents would get what, an annual report, a termly report?
Parents get a termly report through the parents' evenings that they have. We have 2 annual reports. We have one in February that tells them how they've done so far, but more importantly, what we want them to achieve by the end of the year. And then the one at the end of the year tells them how they've gone from that last report to now. So it's far more focused about small step developments rather than over the year we have learnt about. Well, actually, we know that as a parent because we've had the curriculum newsletters every time there's a new curriculum theme. And also, if I was a parent, I would want to know if my child wasn't making as good progress before
Absolutely.
the end of the year.
Mm.
So that's the reason why we have 3 parents' evenings, which is more than you're required, and we have 2 reports, again, which is more than you're required, to make sure that parents are really well informed. And then there's also the fact that the teachers will call the parents in ad hoc, or the parents are more than welcome to come in and speak with the members of staff any day.
Great. When I spoke to you last, you had 239 pupils, 11 teachers, 17 learning assistants and 2 office staff, 3 cleaners and 4 dinner supervisors. Have you got much the same now? Is it
No, we've grown. We have 295 children now. We have them over 11 classes. We also have the nurture group. That means we have 13 teachers because some are part-time. We still have 2 people in the office. We
learning
have
assistants?
learning assistants, I'll have to check, but it's ranging up to about 18, 19 now.
Mm.
And then we have 1 caretaker and 3 cleaners.
Great.
Midday supervisors, there are
Yes.
9, 10.
That's quite a big increase in numbers. I was just thinking this might be not a bad place in a sense to bring in the thing that I was talking last week. I went up to the King Arthur's evening and I got talking to Anna Grosskop, and she was saying we also raised the question of the children's centre, and then she immediately was saying, of course, one of the big problems is this business about we're going to have all these armed service children coming in, and the army won't tell us how many they're going to be or exactly when they're coming, even though they've planned that they say it's national security, and they won't tell us, and that makes it more difficult to us to know what's going to happen with the children's centre.
Mm-hmm.
So that must be something you've got to deal with, I suppose, too.
Yes, I mean,
It's quite an area of uncertainty.
it is. I mean, are we talking about the children's centre or are we talking about the MOD?
Both.
I mean,
Because they linked.
the point of the children's centre is
Does this
not
children's centre
necessarily
make-
about the MOD people.
No.
It's about the fact that Wincanton, I feel, Wincanton still needs a children's centre.
I was going to say, does it?
With the
could
budget
you see the
cuts.
difference it makes to the children who come here?
Yeah.
The children's centre.
We do, but more importantly than that, it fills that gap between the health visitor leaving and children starting school. So a lot of the children's centre's work is about supporting families with very young children, preschool children and toddler groups, and supporting the health services as well as the educational side of it. When they come into school, there's less contact with the children's centre, but we are still supporting families who attend the children's centre because they've got older siblings who are at school. So it's trying to ensure that the community is supported by the children's centre and that has a place to go. Because if that does go, maybe there'll be more demands made of schools to fulfil certain criterias. But what I'm concerned about is with a growing, whether it's MOD or not, we have a growing population in Wincanton. There's going to be more of a need for certain services, and there's not going to be an increase in those services, therefore those services will be stretched. If there is not a place for them to run those services, then it's going to be even harder to meet the needs of the community that are out there.